You have more than any human who ever lived. More food, more comfort, more entertainment, more freedom to be anyone, go anywhere, do anything. So why do so many of us quietly feel like none of it matters? For 99% of human history, almost nobody asked, what's the point of my life? Not because they were too busy surviving to wonder, but because the answer was already woven into everything they did. They woke up knowing exactly why they existed, who they belonged to, and what they were for. Somewhere along the way, we got everything they dreamed of, and lost the one thing they never had to look for. So how did ancient humans find meaning, and how did we manage to lose it? Let's go back, and let me be clear from the start. We're not here to judge what anyone believed. We're here to understand how, for thousands of years, humans built lives that felt full. Let's start with how bad it's gotten. In 2023, researchers at Harvard surveyed young adults and found something staggering. 58% of people aged 18 to 25 said they felt little or no sense of purpose or meaning in their lives in the previous month. More than half. And the ones who scored lowest on meaning had more than double the rates of anxiety and depression. That same year, the US Surgeon General declared an official epidemic, not of a virus, but of loneliness. The report found that weak social connection raises your risk of early death about as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Half of American adults reported real loneliness, even before the pandemic. There's a man who saw this coming, decades ago. His name was Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps. Watching who lived and who gave up, he concluded that the deepest human drive isn't pleasure. And it isn't power. It's the search for meaning. He wrote that a person who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. Frankl's warning was simple. A human being can survive almost anything, except a life that feels pointless. So here's the real question. If we have so much more than our ancestors, why are we the ones running out of why? To answer that, we have to see what they had that we don't. Start with the most basic source of ancient meaning: being needed. For almost all of human history, people lived in small bands, somewhere around 100 to 150 people. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar found this number again and again, small enough that everyone knew everyone, small enough that there were no strangers. And in a group that size, every single person mattered in a way that was impossible to ignore. The anthropologist Richard Lee spent years living with the Jew/Huansi people of the Kalahari Desert. What he documented was a world where each person had a clear, visible, irreplaceable role. You hunted, you gathered, you made tools, you watched the children, you knew the plan. If you didn't do your part, the people you loved went hungry. Your existence had obvious weight. Now compare that to today. You can vanish from your job and be replaced in a week. You can go days in a city of millions without one person noticing you exist. We traded a world where everyone needed us for a world where almost no one does. And the sharing went deeper than survival. Among the Jew Huansi, food was shared across the whole group. And hoarding was the worst thing you could do. Lee described a custom that stunned him. When a hunter brought back a large animal, the group would tease him and insult the meat, calling it thin and worthless, even when it was magnificent. When he asked why, an elder explained, when a young man kills, he may come to think of himself as a chief and the rest as servants. We can't accept this, so we always speak of his meat as worthless. This way, we cool his heart and make him gentle. Think about what that protects. No one rises so high that others feel small. Everyone stays equal. Everyone stays needed. Modern life runs on the exact opposite, on standing out, climbing above, winning. And the higher we climb, the more alone we get. Now add the second great source of meaning, ritual. One of the founders of modern sociology, Emil Durkheim, studied this more than a century ago. He noticed that when a community gathers and moves, chants, or sings together, something happens that he called collective effervescence, a kind of shared electricity, a feeling of being lifted out of yourself and absorbed into something larger. You don't need to believe anything specific to feel it. It's the roar of a stadium crowd. It's 1,000 voices singing the same song. It's the reason a drum beat can give you chills. Durkheim, who studied this as a scientist, not as a believer, argued this feeling is the very root of the sacred and the glue that holds a community together. Ancient humans bathed in this constantly. Take the Jew/Huansi healing dance, documented by the researcher Richard Katz. Through the night, the women sit around a fire, clapping and singing medicine songs, while the men dance in a circle until some enter a trance state and move through the group to heal. No drugs, no stage, no audience. Everyone is part of it. By morning, the whole community has been bound a little tighter. Modern science now confirms what Durkheim sensed. Researchers studying ritual find that moving in sync, sharing intense moments together, literally increases trust and cooperation between people. We are wired to be fused by shared experience. And here's what's haunting. We still crave this place so badly that we recreate it wherever we can. Concerts, sports, festivals. But for most people, these moments have become rare and occasional. For our ancestors, they were woven into the rhythm of ordinary life. The third source of meaning was the biggest of all, the story they lived inside. The historian Yuval Noah Harari argues that the one thing that truly separates humans from every other animal is our ability to believe in shared stories. Myths, gods, nations, ideas that don't physically exist, but that millions agree to believe in together. These shared stories are what let strangers cooperate, and they gave every person a place in something vast. For most ancient cultures, that story explained everything. Where the world came from, why things are the way they are, and what your life meant within it. Consider the Aboriginal peoples of Australia and the tradition often called the dreaming. In this understanding, ancestral beings traveled across a formless land in the beginning, singing the mountains, rivers, and animals into existence. The paths they walked became songlines. And these songs are not just sacred, they're functional. They encode the actual locations of water, food, and safe passage across hundreds of kilometers of country. A single tradition that is at once a map, a history, a moral code, and a reason for being, all fused into the land itself. Imagine living inside a story like that. You aren't a random accident on a spinning rock. You are the latest verse in a song that began at the dawn of the world. Your land remembers you, your ancestors walk with you, and that brings us to them, the dead. For much of human history, death did not end your relationship with someone. Across countless cultures, the ancestors remained present, watched over you, guided you, were spoken to, and honored. You were one link in a chain stretching back into the deep past and forward into the future. You were never just yourself. You were part of an unbroken line. Most of us today live almost entirely in the present. No deep past we feel connected to. No clear future we're building toward. Just now. And now, all by itself, turns out to be a very thin place to stand. There's one more thing ancient humans had that we've almost completely lost. A clear moment when you became who you were meant to be. Anthropologists call them rites of passage. Over a century ago, Arnold van Gennep noticed that initiation rituals all over the world share the same 3 steps. First, you're separated from your old life. Then you pass through an in-between stage, tested, taught, transformed. And finally, you return, reborn into a new role, with a new status everyone recognizes. The anthropologist Victor Turner, who studied initiation among the Ndembu people of Zambia, described the strange power of that middle stage, that threshold where you are no longer who you were, but not yet who you'll become. And he found that the people who pass through it together form an intense, lifelong bond. Think about what that gave a young person. A clear, unmistakable line between child and adult. A moment where the entire community said, "You are someone new now and we see you." Now ask yourself, when did you become an adult? Was there a moment? For most of us, there wasn't one. Adulthood just sort of leaked in. A birthday, a job, a bill. We drift across the most important transitions of our lives with no marker, no ceremony, no one telling us we've arrived. Is it any wonder so many people reach their 30s still quietly wondering if they ever really grew up? So let's put it together. What does modern science say actually creates a sense of meaning? Researchers who study this, like the psychologist Michael Steger, find that meaning rests on 3 things. Coherence, your life makes sense. Purpose, you have direction. And mattering, the feeling that your existence has value to others. And here's the quiet bombshell. Every single one of those was built into ancient life. Coherence came from the shared story. Purpose came from your clear, needed role. Mattering came from a tribe that would notice the moment you were gone. Another researcher, Roy Baumeister, discovered something important about the difference between happiness and meaning. Happiness, he found, mostly comes from getting what you want, from taking, but meaning comes from the opposite, from giving, from belonging, from being part of something bigger than yourself. Ancient life was almost nothing but giving and belonging. Modern life is increasingly organized around taking and standing alone. We didn't lose our meaning by accident, and no single villain took it from us. We slowly traded it for freedom, for comfort, for choice. We left the village for the city, we left the congregation, we left the tribe. Every trade made sense on its own. And at the end of it, we found ourselves with everything we wanted, standing in a room, wondering why it feels so empty. So how did ancient humans find meaning in life? They didn't, really. Not the way we try to. They never sat alone searching for it because it was already there, in the people who needed them, the rituals that moved them, the story they lived inside, and the line of ancestors at their back. And here's the part that matters for you. None of that required a cave, or a campfire, or going back in time. The ingredients are still here, belonging to people who truly know you, showing up to something shared and bigger than yourself. Giving instead of only taking, being needed. These aren't ancient secrets, they're human needs. And they're still available to anyone willing to reach for them. Maybe the point was never to find meaning. Maybe it was to build the kind of life where you never had to look. I'm Olden. I take one strange thing about being human and trace it back to who we used to be. If this gave you something to think about, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.